Chapter 6: The Time-Binding Semantic Circuits. It says that when you put two minds together, there is always a third mind, a third and superior mind, as an unseen collaborator. Human beings are time binders. The third semantic circuits handle artifacts and makes a map, reality tunnels, which can be passed on to others, even across generations. These maps may be painting, blueprints, words, concepts, tools, with instructions and on use transmitted verbally, theories, musics, etc. Human beings, domesticated primates, are symbol-using creatures, which means, as the pioneer semanticist Korzybski noted, that those who rule symbols rule us. If Moses, Confucius, Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, and St. Paul can be considered living influences, and they are, look around the world. This is only because their signal has been carried to us by human symbol system. This system include words, artwork, music, rituals, and unrecognized ritual games through which culture is transmitted. Marx and Hitler, Newton and Socrates, Shakespeare and Jefferson, etc., continue to rule parts of humanity in the same way through the semantic circuits. We are ruled even more and even less consciously by the inventors of the wheel, the plow, the alphabet, even the Roman words. Since words contain both denotations, reference in the sensory existential word, and connotation, emotional tones, and poetic or rhetorical hooks, humans can be moved to action even by words, which have no real meaning or reference in actuality. This is the mechanism of demagoguery, advertising, and much of organized religion. The biosurvival circuits only divides experience into two sets, that which is good for me or nourishing, and that which is bad for me or threatening. The emotional territorial circuits also divides the world into two halves, that which is more powerful than me, higher in the pecking order, and that which is less powerful than me, lower in the pecking order. On this basis, socio-biological systems evolved and animal societies of truly human complexity have been studied. The semantic circuits allows us to subdivide things and reconnect things at pleasure. There is no end to its busy labeling and packaging of experience. On the personal level, this is the internal monologue discovered by Joyce in Ulysses. On the historical level, this is the time-binding function described by Korzybski, which allows each generation to add new categories to our mental library, connecting new things, separating new things, reclassifying, and reshuffling forever. In this time-binding dimension, Einstein replaced Newton before most of the world had heard of Newton. Simple arithmetic gave birth to algebra, which brought forth calculus, which produced tensor calculus, etc. Haydn and Mozart prepared the way for Beethoven, who broke into the realms that the Romantics and Wagnerian took over, which gave birth to what is called music today. So-called future shock has always been with us, since the semantic circuits began to functioning somewhere in prehistory, in a symbolizing, calculating, abstracting species of time or time of change. The process is, however, accelerating faster as time passes, because the symbolizing faculty is inherently self-augmenting. In ordinary language, the semantic circuit is usually called the mind. As psychologist Robert Ornstein said in the recent radio show, when we say someone has a good mind, we generally mean they have a good mouth. They use the semantic circuit well. In terms of transactional analysis, the first, the oral circuit, is called the natural child. The second, emotional circuit, is called the adapted child. And the semantic circuit is called the adult or computer. In Jungian terms, the first circuit mediates sensations, the second circuit feeling, the third circuit reason. The neurological component of the first circuit go back to the oldest parts of the brain. Carl Sagan called this function the reptile brain. These neutral structures are at least billions of years old. The second circuit structures appeared with the first amphibians and mammals somewhere around 1,000 million or 500 million years ago. Sagan called them the mammalian brain. The semantic circuits appeared perhaps 100,000 years ago. Sagan called it the human brain. It should be no surprise that most people, most of the time, are controlled more by the older reptilian mammalian circuits than by the human semantic rational circuits, or that the semantic circuit is so easily perverted into false logic, bigotries, intolerant ideologies, fanaticism of all sorts. When the biosurvival circuits signals threat to life, or the emotional circuit flashes threats to status. Psionics, satirists, and mystics circuits 5 to 8 types have told us over and over that reason is a horror. What the hell? Is that the semantic circuit is notoriously vulnerable to manipulation by older, more primitive circuits. However much the rationalists might resent this, it is always true in the short run, that is, to use one of the rationalists' favorite words, it is always pragmatically true. Whoever can scare people enough, produced by survival anxiety, can sell them quickly on any verbal map that seems to give them relief, cure anxiety, by frightening people with hell and then offering them salvation. The most ignorant or crooked individuals can sell a whole system of thoughts that cannot bear 2 minutes of rational analysis. And any domesticated primate, alpha male, however cruel or crooked, can rally the primate tribe behind him by hoping that rival alpha male is about to lead his gang and attack on these habitats. These two mammalian reflexes are known, respectively, as religion and patriotism. They work for domesticated primates as for the wild primates because they are evolutionary relative successes so far. The emotional territorial or patriotic circuits also contains the pack status programs or pecking order, working in tandem with first circuit's biosurvival anxieties. It is always able to pervert the functioning of the semantic rational circuits. Whatever threatens loss of status and whatever invades one's space, including one's ideological headspace, is a threat to the average domesticated primate. Thus, if a poor man has one status prop in his life, I'm a white man, not a goddamn nigger, or I'm normal, not goddamn faggot, or whatever. Any attempt to preach tolerance, common humanity, relativism, etc., is not processed through the semantic circuits, but through the emotional circuits, as is rejected as an attack on status, ego, a social role. The attentive reader will remember that the grid of the first two circuits puts the preverbal child into a two-dimensional world, which in the simplest of our diagram look like this. Dominate, submit, retreat, advance. It's like Nietzsche's allegory. Of course, preaching itself is bad. Second circuit's politic, since it puts you one up on a person preached that you are not one up unless imprinted as such by being an alpha male in the same gene pool, or conditioned as such by being a boss or other authority figure. The counterculture of the 1960s, like many other idealistic movements, failed because it did so much preaching from a morally one-up position when nobody had been imprinted or conditioned to accept it as one-up. I don't understand any of this shit. The third semantic circuit seems intimately connected with the dimensionality. Although our binocular vision, of course, also plays a role here, specifically right-handedness. Right-handedness is a human, or at least primate trait. Other mammals shows no right-hand reference. They are ambidextrous. Recent neurology has shown that our right-handedness is intimately connected with our tendency to use the left hemisphere of the brain more than the right. The left-handed minority are discussed below. Indeed, we use the right hemisphere so little in ordinary life that for a long time it was called the silent hemisphere. Thus, there is a genetic hardwired preference in the most humans for right-handed manipulation and left brain mentation. Now, these connections seems intimately involved with our verbal semantic circuitry, because the left brain is a talking brain. It is linear, analytical, computer-like, and very verbal. Thus, there is neurological basis of the linkage between mapping and manipulating. The right hand manipulates the universe and makes artifacts, and the left brain maps the result into a model, which allows for prediction about future behavior of that part of the universe. These are distinctly human, post-primate characteristics. The left-handed, on the contrary, specialize in the right brain and mystical. Leonardo, Beethoven, and Nietzsche, for instance, were all left-handed. Traditionally, left-handed people have been subject of both dread and awe, regarded as weird, shamanic, and probably in special communication with God or the devil. There is this crossover which makes for left-right plurality in both brain functioning and hand functioning. Each brain a reverse mirror image of the other. Left brain analysis, circuitry, right brain intuition, secrets. 6. Left hand, right hand. This double and reverse red-light polarity places us neurologically in three-dimensional space. Rearranging our diagram and adding the third circuit, we can illustrate the minefield as follows: dominate, retreat, advance. Uh, Left hand, hostile weakness, hostile strength. Right hand, friendly strength, friendly weakness. Huh. To visualize this two-dimensional sketch in three-dimensional systems, it is necessary to imagine that the advanced retreat axis is at right angle to others. That is, see it's coming out of the page at you. This is Euclidean space. It is obvious in this context why Euclidean space was the first kind of space discovered by mathematicians and by artists, and why it still seems natural to us. Why some have great difficulty in imagining and non-Euclidean kinds of space used in modern physics. Euclidean space is a projection outward of the way our nervous system stacks information on the biocerebral, emotional, and semantic circuits. Thus, the imprint sites of these circuits are located in the left cortex and closely linked with the delicate muscles of larynx and the fine manipulation of right-handed dexterity. The cortex itself is so recent in evolution that it is often called the new brain. It is found only the higher mammals and is the most developed in human and cetaceans, dolphins, and whales. Those extreme cases who take their heaviest imprint on the third circuit tend to grow up cerebrotonic. They are tall and skinny because energy is perpetually drawn upward from the body into the head. The caricatured evil genius, the Dr. Sylvanus in Superman, who was virtually all head, represent the extreme towards which this type seems to be evolving. Popular speech called them egghead. Almost always, these cerebrotonic third circuit types ignore or are hostile to their first and second circuit function. Playfulness puzzles them, appear silly or eccentric, and emotion both baffle and frighten them. Since we all contain these circuits, we all need to exercise it regularly. Make up a schematic diagram of your business and or home and try to streamline it for more efficiency. Design a chart that explains the whole universe. Every few years, study a science you know nothing about at an adult education center, and don't neglect to play this circuit. Write poems, jingles, fables, proverbs, or jokes. Remember, Mr. Crowley said, you too are a star. Plus, he also said, do not lust after result. Physiotonic, extreme, circuit 1 imprint. Jung's film site, natural child. Muscular, extreme, imprint Jung's sensational types, adapted child. Huh. Cerebrotonic, extreme, circuit 3, imprint Jung's rational type, adult or computer. The neurological imprint is the blueprint for the entire organism. As with the earlier circuits, the semantic circuits builds all of its conditioning and learning onto the bedrock of hardwired imprinting. Thus, many existentially thinkable thoughts are socially unthinkable, since everybody in a given society has roughly the same semantic imprint, and b this is the reinforced daily by assumptions that are mechanically taken for granted. Thus, a genius is one who, by some internal process, breaks through the circuits. 7. A minor neurological miracle, loosely called intuition, and comes back down to the third circuit with the capacity to paint a new semantic map. build a new model of experience. Needless to say, this is always a profound shock to those still trapped in the old robot imprint and is generally considered a threat to territory, ideological hate space. The long list of martyrs to free inquiry from Socrates onward shows how mechanical this neophobia, fear of new semantic signal, is. As Thomas Kuhn showed in the structure of scientific revolutions, science itself, the apotheosis of third circuit semantic rationality, is not free of this neophobia. Kuhn demonstrated at length that each scientific revolution took one full generation to turn over the old worldview, and Kuhn further showed that the older scientists never are converted to the new semantic paradigm. They are, in our terminology, mechanically hooked to their original imprint. The revolution is complete, and as Kuhn showed, only when a second generation, not hooked to the old imprint, is able to compare the two models and decide rationally that the newer one really does make more sense. But if science, the most self-correcting of all information processing third circuit functions, has this one generation time lag, what can be said of politics, religion, economic? Time lag of centuries, or even millenniums are common there. We commented earlier that in biosurvival neurology, there is no time. I just find myself doing it. We say after passing through an automatic reflex on the biosurvival circuits. This only refers to other people's politics, religion, and economies. Needless to say, the reader's own opinions of this subject are only reasonable and objective ones, of course. Emotional and territorial circuits action begin to include time as a factor. Dominant signal might not work to the seemingly weaker mammal might offer a counter challenge. Two dogs will walk around each other for several minutes, growling and sniffing. The chemical secretion of each reveals its actual degree of fear to the other, before top dog and the bottom dog become clear. On the human level, we often agonize over emotional decisions, becoming acutely conscious of time as we hesitate. As every suspense writer knows, the principal way to increase emotional tension is to set a time limit on a difficult or dangerous decisions. See any Star Trek script, the time limit is never missing. Or see any Irving Wallace bestsellers. Suspense is always increased, of course, is if the time limit is abruptly shortened just before the climax. On the third circuit, time becomes conceptualized as well as experienced. We know ourselves as creatures of time, the tale of the tribe, the totem pole, the Odysseys of Homer, the Old Testament, the Vedas, etc., tells us what came before and often contains prophecies of what will come later. Science expanded third circuits into contemplation of time spans that stagger our imagination. The very use of written languages and other symbols like mathematics creates the time-binding sense of Kozypski. We know ourselves as receivers of messages sent by sages of old, and as potential transmitter of messages that might be scanned ages in the future. Messages. The fourth circuit causes us to be even more involved in and pressured by time. In closing this chapter, let us remind that Giordano Bruno was born at the stake February 18, 1600 for teaching that the earth moves. Was he guilty or not? Exercises. 1. If you are a liberal, Subscribe to the National Review, the country's most intelligent and witty conservative magazine, for a year. Each month, try to enter their reality tunnel for a few hours while reading their articles. If you are conservative, subscribe to the New York Review of Books for a year and try to get into their headspace for a few hours a month. 3. If you are a rationalist, subscribe to Faith Magazine for a year. 4. If you are a cultist, join the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal and read their journal, The Skeptical Inquirer, for a year. 5. Buy a copy of the Scientific American and read any article in it. Ask the following questions. Why do they sound so sure? Does the data support dogmatism at this point? Or is dogma a primate habit, depending headspace? Will these theories still be believed in 2011? In 2593? Number 6. Get into a discussion of philosophy with an educated Marxist, an intelligent Muslim, and Japanese businessman at the first opportunity. 7. Buy some Zoom or Lyft, two names for the same caffeine high stimulant, at a health food store. This gives a close approximation of the effects of illegal cocaine. When you are zooming or Lyft and your mind is racing, find a victim and explain that universe to him or her until they are able to escape you. What you experience is this speed rap is what the head of this compulsive rationalist is always like. This is the verbal circuits going wild and totally oblivious to the information coming in or any other circuits. It explains why most people cannot stand rationalists. Speeds, drugs evidently trigger neurotransmitter characteristics of the verbal centers of the left cortex. I I don't understand any of this shit. Tadi bener jadi lorong realitas. Oke.